It was in this chamber a number of years ago that we knocked down the great walls of discrimination on the basis of race, that we knocked down the walls of discrimination on the basis of religion, with regards to national origin, knocked them down with regards to gender. We were part of the March for Progress, and today we are called on again. Year after year, we've had the broken borders. Year after year, we have the exploitations of workers. Year after year, we see the people that live in fear within our own borders of the United States for America. This is the opportunity to change it. Now is the time. Now is the time to resume our commitment to family values, of people who want to work hard, people that care about this country and want to be a part of the American dream, who have seen their sons and daughters, in many instances, go and fight and lose their lives. That is the challenge. Now is the time. This is the place.
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. That was Graham. He's late as but that was Ted Kennedy, a symbol of an American dream. You hear his inspirational talk there. And today we have a dreamer with us today. Mostafa, your last name?
Ghonim.
Ghonim. And this is exactly what we're talking about. Immigrants coming to America and becoming Americans. And we have a dreamer here that knows no other country but America. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for
Mostafa.
having me. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm
Tell
excited
us how that inspires you to hear Ted Kennedy.
It's good to know that there are others who understand what the experience is about and know that what our intention is for being here. I think that's been misinterpreted a bit through the new administration and just some of the media not really narrowing in on who we are, what we've gone through, and what we're here trying to accomplish.
Well, you know, this is a stated fact that this has always been an ideal of America. We're a nation of immigrants. Except for Afro-American, we were forced to come here. Right?
That's right.
On the back of enslaved ships, and we're the real builders of America, right?
For real.
For real, on the real side. Mostafa asked us, how does it feel being African-American and watching the immigrants claim to have built America? What do you say?
That's when, you know, you listen, and it's grounds for asking, what do you mean? When? How? Explain that to me. We would tend to challenge them. What are you talking about? No, don't challenge them. Let them talk. And then you know what the truth is.
Right.
We know what the truth is.
Right.
Even if it's a little bit of so-called black history, we know what the truth is.
Right.
And what we will find at times is that their statement plays into a stereotype of black people in America.
Okay.
Black people in America, in many instances, have been portrayed to people from outside of America as being lazy and shiftless. And that's important for the people who run this thing to portray, because that hides the fact of what we really did for this country and in this country. And without our slave labor, there would not have been an industrial revolution.
Amen.
When we study that in school, we have there's no indication of the free labor that we provided, not that we provided, that we were forced to provide, and the amount of money that was saved off this free labor. Not only did they impose free labor on us, but they worked us to death, literally.
Right.
When the African burial grounds were discovered in Lower Manhattan, and we, black folks, pushed to have those bodies preserved and examined by the people down at Howard University and other universities, they found 14-year-old children who had cracked skulls from carrying the heavy weight of these bundles or whatever they were carrying. This was forced labor, and their skulls were cracked over a period of time, and they could tell how old the individuals were. So we don't have to as the people defend, we can ask questions. And then after it's laid out, then we dissect it.
Okay. Well,
But that doesn't take away from the contributions of people coming in,
right.
okay? And the irony of it is that many of the countries that they're coming from have been exploited by the Western world,
Right.
and the resources there are over here anyway.
Right. So, we've all been taken
but
advantage of.
they don't make that computation. They come into the land of milk and honey, but the resources were taken from out of where you came from, even if it's Vietnam or North Korea.
Is there a superiority complex for most immigrants coming here? I mean, have you seen this, that they think that the Afro-American is lazy, or did they see that why aren't they taking advantage of the advantages that are here? I know you get a few Jamaicans coming here from
They
Jamaica.
run that to you real quick.
Real quick.
Then you run back to them. How come you not? How come you don't own? How come you don't own where you just came from?
Right, exactly.
How come the Lebanese are there?
Right, exactly. Lebanese in Jamaica, is that right?
Lebanese all over the, because that's part of the subjugation of a people, is to bring in others over them.
Okay.
So when you get angry at
The one that doesn't
chess
look
piece
like
that's
them.
been placed there,
Right.
but the ones who brought them there and financed them. It just don't happen.
Right.
It's
So,
orchestrated.
so the question was that you see that in, well, you're too young to perhaps be exposed to that.
Right.
I mean, the white supremacy that we know of in our day, and well, it still exists today. We have a president, white supremacist, and he's appealed to this country of white supremacy,
Yeah.
of the European being dominant and controlling everything that we do and say, and being the better human being because of its culture and everything else. Yet they go to the homeland of mankind, Mother Africa, and rob everything and call it a S-hole. I mean, the irony of all this. I mean, Trump is a classic example of the buffoonery or the hypocrisy of the American dream, as you see it. And how do you relate to that?
I mean, it's truly a challenge, because you grow up almost living this double life, where
Right.
you
Okay.
know where you come from, but because you're here at such a young age, such a tender age, you can be easily manipulated to believe otherwise, or
Right,
whatever's
right.
taught to you at school
Right.
becomes your new history.
Right.
So in my example, I came here at 7 years old. So yes, from Egypt. And I remember the difference between back then and now. When I would comment to people about, I'm from Egypt, the response was, wow, that's amazing. I want to go visit the pyramids. That's incredible.
Right.
But you fast forward approximately 20 years now at the age of 27. When you tell people you're from Egypt, that's not necessarily the response you get, at least not as often as you
okay.
get. Why? The media has portrayed people of the Middle East, people of Muslim belief, that they are terrorists.
Right.
So over time, you have seen even the history of such a great nation, right, birthed in Africa, to kind of have been forgotten. And I'm starting to see that that's kind of happened in a lot of other cases as well. So,
The doctor, share with us that part of what your experience is, because I don't know much about it.
Let's do this. Let's run Obama talking about DACA, and then we have Graham come on and set. All right, just run the second piece on DACA from Obama. All right?
Before he left office, President Barack Obama told the press he'd mostly refrain from weighing in on the back and forth of politics, with one big exception.
The notion that we would just arbitrarily, or because of politics, punish those kids when they didn't do anything wrong themselves, I think would be something that would merit me speaking out.
He's referring to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA. And when President Trump finally decided to end the program, Obama kept his word. In a Facebook post Tuesday, the former president called Trump's choice to end the program cruel, wrong, and against common sense. Obama has made public statements about politics since leaving the White House, but this is his broadest one yet. His thoughts were echoed by former Vice President Joe Biden, who said on Twitter, "Brought by parents, these children had no choice in coming here. Now they'll be sent to countries they've never known. Cruel, not America." Obama also called the move by Trump self-defeating because he said those in the program want to start new businesses, staff our labs, serve in our military, and otherwise contribute to the country we love. A report from an advocacy group and a liberal think tank said rescinding DACA could cost 30,000 people their jobs every month for the next 2 years. That in turn would cost the U.S. over $460 billion over a decade. DACA was created by Obama through an executive order in 2012 and has been challenged in the courts as unconstitutional. Obama defended the program's legality and said ending it was a political decision and a moral question.
Well, a little quick breakdown. Now, I didn't realize that 30,000 jobs in the next 2 years. I mean, that's amazing. And the costs are, I forgot the figure there. What did they say?
Into the
460.
Into the billions, huh?
Yeah, so
right.
yeah, the breakdown of it is, and I'll kind of give some context to answer your question as well. Basically, deferred action, or DACA, was a law.
Repeat his question to you.
Well, the fact is that there are those of us who don't know anything about
Right.
it because, quote, it doesn't relate to us.
Right. Okay.
It's a news item. We think it doesn't relate to us.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm making a correction.
That's right.
Would
We
this,
think-
would this piece help you a little bit?
When we go through a discussion, it'll come out.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. They still don't mention how this affects the everyday American, outside of
Okay.
just a job loss. Because right off the bat, and I'll go to your question, of course, as you mentioned it, but $460 billion in losses to the economy have to be replaced somehow, right? That's how it affects the everyday American. Now, in response to your question about what DACA is, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA, was a law that was brought out in 2012 by President Obama
Right.
that granted protection to young people who have entered the country either through the southern border or who came with their parents under a visa and have overstayed.
Right.
Now, they're saying that you came, of course, it was by no choice of saying to yourself, yes, I want to go to America. Most of us were under the age of 10, even younger than that. Me personally, I entered in at the age of 7. Now, once that visa expires, you all fall under the umbrella or the category of being undocumented or an illegal immigrant. Yet, you go to school here.
Right.
You participate into activities with all American children, people, your classmates, your friends, your neighbors. You grow up watching American television. You participate in the holidays. You are celebrating Independence Day. You are doing everything American. And then you realize at some point in your life that you are not American because of this piece of paper, this citizenship or protection that you don't have. How do you know? You're not able to get a driver's license when it's time for all your friends to start driving, and you have to start making excuses saying...
Did that happen to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I didn't have the proper documents to gather enough points to be able to get my first learner's permit or driver's license.
Get a little personal about it. How did it affect you, all this? How did it make you feel after being, growing up in this country?
Right.
All of a sudden you turn 18, you're about to graduate from high school.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're not one of the guys or one of the kids.
Yeah, I mean, it started for me even earlier than that. I think I was introduced
Okay.
and really brought to the awareness that I am not of this country on September 11, 2001.
Of course, of course.
Right, because we can't overshadow the fact that not only
Right.
was I an undocumented immigrant or an immigrant of that status, but I was also a Muslim growing up in New York City
Right.
after the attacks of September 11th.
Right.
And from our school window, I actually saw the burning towers. I went to school in Astoria, Queens. We had a pretty good view of the skyline, New York City there,
Okay.
and smoke literally was bursting into the air everywhere. And I remember a classmate of mine raised his hand and brought the attention to the teacher saying, hey, the Twin Towers are on fire. And at that time, I was only in the country 4 years.
Oh, wow.
I entered in '97, this is September of 2001. I did not really know what the Twin Towers represented. I wasn't really acclimated to American culture just yet. I had just learned enough to speak the lingo. I understood the language. I was reading and writing. So I was progressing fairly well in a 3 or 4 year span. But that day changed my life. I always pinpoint that day to have changed my life, because overnight I went from just a regular kid who's going to school every day and you're not concerned about anything, to then looking at people as they shied away from you, or shied away from your parents, or looked at your mother funny because she wore a hijab, or outlash in the media of calling, just using that word, Muslim terrorist, Muslim terrorist. And one thing that irks me, it's not the fact that Muslims aren't terrorists. Terrorists, they should not even come into the same sentence.
There are all groups of terrorists. There are terrorists that have developed here in this country. We had the Ku Klux Klan here.
I was about to mention the
You know,
Klan. We got Donald Trump.
John
yeah,
Birch Society.
terrorists.
So there have been terrorist groups. If you go to Ireland, you know, they had the revolutionaries in Ireland, the IRA. There are various groupings. They're not Muslims.
That's right.
They're in every grouping of people.
That's right.
And people who are fighting for their freedom are looked at one way as opposed to the other.
That's right.
Young men have served, and the Khan family, you know, that had confronted Trump. Here is a captain that gave his life for the country. There are young men that serve in the military that are not citizens. And some have served and been deported.
That's right.
There's a group of young men in Mexico that served this country, and after their service, they were kicked out.
That's right.
How is it you can't get a driver's license? That determines, in some respects, what jobs you can and cannot get.
That's right.
By not having a driver's license.
Absolutely.
Tell us more
And
about your personal input.
Yeah, so furthermore, if we were to even fast forward to high school, I lost my father my freshman year of high school. There was a loss of a male presence in my home. I then became the man of the household at 15 years old, followed by my mother and my aunt. And that's kind of what breeds into the hunger of an immigrant undocumented dreamer, right? We come from broken homes nonetheless, or even if our families are together, our father is working 2 jobs, 12, 14 hours a day, lack of resources to make up for lost ground.
Right.
You know, my parents came here at 39 years old. You think about starting life at a new place, a new home, trying to find a home, because like they say in the song, a house is not a home. So you're trying to create a new home in a new place where you don't speak the language, you don't know where you're going to work, you don't have any friends or family for support, and you're just coming here for your young boy, your child, to get a better life.
And why did they come here?
We all came here for pursuit of the American dream. We wanted to obviously contribute to the great country and build a better life for ourselves as well.
What was their lifestyle? What were they involved in Egypt? Were they shopkeepers?
He came here with a working visa.
professionals?
Came here with a working
Doing
visa,
what?
that's right. Yeah, my father had spent some time in Kuwait. He worked at a printing company there, and then came back to Egypt. Pretty much literally within a month we came into the States.
Wow.
We worked, my father just worked multiple jobs, primarily around delivering whether it be bread or like working a bread route, things of that nature. My mother stayed at home for the most part. It wasn't until his late years where she started kind of working in a supermarket. And she was literally bagging groceries at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and
How many kids in your family?
just me, just myself.
you?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when my father passed away, then things really we got a reality check there, right? My father passed away with, I think, $200 in his pant pocket, no money in the bank, and then we had to go through the bureau process, and we're just panicking, like, all right, what do we do now, right? And that's when we made the decision. At that point, my father had he had established his own bread route at the time, so he had his own business, and we knew that he came here primarily for me to get a better education.
Right.
So we flirted with me going to school. I also played varsity baseball at the time, and trying to manage and run the business alongside a driver. We did that for about 6 months, and we weren't getting some good feedback or good results just because it was too much for me to handle at that age. So my mother decided that we would walk away from the business for me to stay in school and continue my education.
Yes.
So And again, it's like it recycles, right? So yes, not getting a license is one thing, and we live in New York City, so we're fortunate to be able to use public transportation.
Yeah.
You don't need a vehicle so much. But I think another defining moment for me was I went to work my first job at a catering hall, and I worked as a barback for an event that they had in a local catering hall down the street. I busted my butt. I was getting paid, I think, $6 an hour, the minimum wage at the time, and I received some tip as well. It was like 70 bucks. So I came out of the night making maybe under $100, and I was extremely excited because now I said I can help my mother on my days off, and this was going to be
How
good.
old were you?
I was maybe 16 or 17
Okay.
at the time.
Oh, that's good.
It was great, but it
Yeah.
didn't last long because the following week, the manager there said that you gave us a tax ID. We need a Social Security to actually officially hire you.
Wow.
So then that's why I say without the proper documents, you're put in that predicament where you can't even get a job. Getting a license, okay, but you can't get a job. You can't work. So the only place you can work is whomever is willing to hire you off the books, which in most cases is what, a dishwasher? Right? You're going to school, you're educated, fine, but if you don't have those documents, puts you in a pretty tough position. And then even after that, I think another awakening moment for me was knowing that I don't qualify for financial aid. So despite of our backgrounds or how you do well in school, if financially that is a decision or something you can't afford to, and moving forward to continue your education onto college, you can't get that funding or that support that most of your friends or other Americans are receiving. So I think by that point, between September 11 and I was a senior in high school, I had pretty much understood that, okay, my life is going to be different. I'm going to be up for something a little bit unlike some of my other friends, and I have to try my best even at that age not to compare and contrast so much.
What's the justification that Trump offers the public for removing DACA?
Well, he's saying that this would make our country safer because the claim is undocumented immigrants or people entering the country are all of MS-13, gang members, just these ridiculous claims, really.
Well,
And
for the record, Obama was accredited with exporting or deporting the most people, immigrants in the history of America.
Right.
That were mostly criminals.
Right.
All right? So he was doing the job of getting rid of the bad guys.
Well, one thing with DACA, in order for a
That's
young
right,
man,
you have to be straight.
in order for someone to qualify for DACA,
Right.
you have to have a clean criminal record.
Right.
Okay.
There are some certain requirements that you have to meet for you then to get that protected status, for you to get the worker's permit and be able to get your driver's license and go out there and live the life that we all want to live. So it doesn't make sense to say that we're protecting this country by removing this group of people who are, just to give you some of the numbers, I mean, over 90% of them are working and contributing to the economy. 15% of us have purchased our first home. 5% of us or 5.5% of us own our own businesses. Others who bought their first car. And so obviously massive amounts of contribution to the economy to then strip us and put us back in the shadows to have to, in most cases, maybe get fired from a job, because once that permit expires, you can no longer continue working at your establishment, whether that be the local diner or Microsoft. And in most cases, you have both.
How do you transition from DACA to the status of a viable participant in the U.S. population, meaning either a
Citizenship.
citizen or getting
That's all
whatever
depending
document?
on what Donald Trump
Yeah,
does.
so with DACA, it was kind of a temporary solution, but it,
2012,
you
right?
can, and yeah, the law was established in 2012. You
What
were
did you
up
do
for
before
renewal.
then? What did you do before Obama passed the executive order in 2012?
Just stuck it out. Tried doing my best to, like I said, got jobs primarily off the books.
Ah, okay.
To kind of figure it
So
out. My mother
2012,
volunteered.
you got a regular job with a driver's license and
Yes, at that time I had transferred to a college in Michigan to complete
Okay.
my business degree. from a liberal arts college in Michigan. I was recruited to play baseball there as well. So that I was literally just perfect transition between my local community college and the college over in Michigan.
You, with Obama, you all praises to Obama.
Absolutely. I mean, every person says that day was just a big sigh of relief, right? That pressure that you walked away with, like, what does my future have in store for me? Because it's difficult. Nowadays, it's difficult for someone to see the hopes of going to college. But imagine you going to college knowing that you can graduate, get all these great accolades, and not be able to put them to use because you don't have the documents necessary to work. So in regards to your question about what we can do to get into citizenship, with DACA, there was not any direct pathway to be able to get to being a citizenship. It was just under the notion that every 2 years, as long as you maintained your status of not committing any crimes or doing anything like that, you can renew that protection of deportation. You're not allowed to leave the country.
That was an executive order.
That's
Right. The
Well,
Congress
what about the
wouldn't.
immigration bill that was passed by the Senate, and Boehner would never bring it up in the House?
Right, that was the problem. That's why he had to do the executive order.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because this was another indicator of the racist attitude
Right.
that the Congress had against Barack Obama and against everything that he wanted to do for the people of this country.
Right.
So now, fast forward, we're here with Trump
That's right.
and talking about MS-13, which has nothing to do. Long Island, 2 weeks ago, there was a robbery, MS-13, they stuck up a cab driver. Guy had all the tattoos on his face, MS-13. He was a white boy named Jones.
Wow.
A white boy. Are they going to ship him out of the country? You see, this is
MS-13 with
MS-13 is a white boy named Jones on Long Island. He and a Latino. So what are you going to do? You're going to kick out the Latino and you're going to keep the white boy? This is where it is now. MS-13 is not. What about all the white people selling methamphetamines? All right, they're trying to categorize. See, my grandchildren are half Mexican.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
This is so insane. They took a man who was driving his kids to school last week. He was a professor, or a teacher, a college professor. They dragged him out of his car and told the children, if you touch your father, we'll lock you up too. And they
Really?
carried him off, and they're shipping him out of the country. A professor.
Yeah, this is Trump.
He's better educated than the men that arrested him. You understand? There are people come, everybody comes here for the same reason.
That's
They
it.
want a better life.
That's it. That's
Nothing more.
That's it.
What are your hopes about what's going to happen? Well, as long as Trump is in office, we have to find an uprise of all decent people here in America. Mostly Republicans are going to have to come. Well, I see a lot of people are coming around. I mean, because this man has shown his real rear end lately, especially with this Porter guy.
There was a shooting today in a school. I don't know if you know.
in Florida.
Yeah.
Florida.
I don't think that was an immigrant that
No,
did
but
that.
we have our own personal problems. We've got Donald Trump in the White House. I mean, he's obviously a traitor. I mean, he's in cahoots. Well, isn't he?
I would
He's
say
in
so.
cahoots.
would say
What can you
so.
call him? He's a traitor.
Pence made a statement today.
Him and Putin are married now, aren't they? He has to call Putin up to get approval to do anything, right? He won't. The sanctions on Russia because of the interference in the 2016 election were, I think there were 5 votes out of the House and the Senate total, and he won't apply those sanctions. Now, obviously, Russians are being paid off for helping him win the election. It's all coming down before the end of the year.
Pence said today that there is an issue. Pence said today, the Soviets did interfere in our election process.
course.
He said,
Pence
so
is saying.
he has stepped away from Trump on that issue.
Because they know he's on his
And
way
the
out.
hearings yesterday with the CIA and all of the other heads of Intel,
Yeah, you see that?
they were straightforward.
That's
so
right.
there is a serious problem here, not just with Russia, but with the overall way in which this administration is run. A third of the people, 30-some-odd people, don't even have clearance to be in the White House.
So he's doing everything wrong.
Not just with that one
May I
guy.
interject this? I mean, the irony is extraordinary. Mustafa's people are from Egypt.
That's right.
Egypt had a bona fide democratic election a few years ago.
Right, right.
The Muslim Brotherhood won that election.
That's right.
Who financed the overthrow of the Muslim Brotherhood, which led to executions of people and imprisonment?
America?
You put a question mark on it. This is based on what they say.
Okay. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeltsin. I'm listening to a program last night, Don Batchelor on WABC. He's so right wing. But he had on a professor from NYU, a guy who appears to be straight up.
Right.
And they were going into this Russian thing, this betrayal and whatnot. And they were revealing, the professor was revealing, it's known but not known among us, how America basically financed Yeltsin.
Okay.
They were all involved in the Russian politics. So here comes, I'm not defending Putin, because I'm not, but we have to deal on actual facts. These people have overthrown so many governments.
Hey.
So when it happens here, he's a traitor?
Well,
or
remember Malcolm said the chickens are coming home to roost? Okay?
The chickens are coming home to roost by way of a revelation.
Okay.
It's not so much, in my opinion, that which you put out you're getting back. It's the revelation of what's happening.
Okay.
That's what we're seeing. But when you going back to DACA, if it doesn't, okay. This guy in office, Mr. Trump, is endeavoring to undo any and everything that Obama put in place.
That's obvious.
And when you look at DACA, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Meaning the inhumanity that's built into the Trump's desire to end this thing.
Right.
So why is he doing it?
To disrupt
Why is he doing it?
Disrupt America.
Is playing to his
base.
constituency while he is robbing them blind.
That's right.
His constituency are the people in Appalachia, the poor people, the poor people in Iowa, the poor people in Des Moines, the ones who are on methamphetamine up in Mount
So why can't I call him so why can't I call him a traitor?
No, you can.
Okay.
You can, but what I'm saying is that these things have to be analyzed, in my opinion, because it's easy to call somebody a liar, a traitor, or a thief.
It's not easy.
But the actual facts are out there for us to digest.
But he's such an obvious one. He's in your face. Ain't no doubt about it. Anything he does and says, and we know him from New York. We know what kind of character he is. Has he ever been any different?
I think
he's a product of New York.
He's a product of his family.
What's the guy?
He's not a product of New York.
His
father,
you're born and
his
raised. You're a product
grandfather
of your
was a
environment.
pimp.
He's the greed and selfishness of Wall Street and everything else.
Right.
To become a billionaire, you have to use and steal and rob everybody else.
I think if we study Roy Cohn,
yeah, there you go. His mentor.
If we study Roy Cohn,
his mentor.
We can see some of his style. But in this book,
the original Cohn,
in the book that I brought here a couple of weeks ago, It's Worse Than You Think, by Johnston. Johnston.
D.C. report.
Yeah. And there's another book out by a guy named David Fern or something like that. And that's what Johnston says that Mr. Trump's former wife says is that next to in the nightstand, there's the book of Hitler's speeches.
I saw that.
And his speeches are patterned after that. So when we say he's playing to his constituency, he throws, because DACA has to be nothing but foreigners, darker hued people. It can't be anything else in their minds, in the unlettered mind. So he
White
throws
supremacy.
that out there while his Pence is, according to what's said, Pence is more dangerous than this guy is.
That's right.
And you're not dealing with two people, you're dealing with a whole group of individuals. We're dealing with a team effort.
Right.
You know, we come into the game, you know, sell wolf tickets and stuff. They have a team effort. All I'm saying is that the information is out there that we can throw on the table, and the information is being revealed by their own people. So when we look at the inhumanity of destroying lives of young people who've come here like Mostafa, they're here and they're pursuing the American dream. And to disrupt that, that's something's off with that. So in my opinion, I'm restating what I said before, is playing to his constituency. Yeah, get rid of DACA. But in the meantime, he's changed the tax code. He's offered a budget that takes away from education, that takes away from SNAP, the food. And these are programs that more Caucasians are involved in than black people.
Yep.
And he's doing it. So it's a game. I think our obligation is to point out the game.
Right.
Not to
That's
say
right.
this guy is a name. I ain't disagreeing.
No. I tell it where it is, man. You know you're going to get it straight from me.
Listen, the more I read, you've heard me disagree with you before and say, hey, man, you know, Trump is an individual just like Giuliani and just like Koch is.
No,
but the more I read, the more I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying,
Tell me. I knew it from
agree.
day one, man. Come on, he ain't always been a con.
What
He's
about
always been a con.
families?
Look at his past. I mean, it's a joke that this man is in the White House. And when he won, he was shocked himself. He had played the game to the hilt. He thought he'd lose and run away and harass Hillary forever, and him and Putin would harass Hillary, and he'd make all this money. How much do you think he owes Putin? What kind of
no, they're
debt?
even, brother, with the amount of
No.
money that's being said.
And look what he's stealing from the American government.
Donald
Oh, my
Trump
God.
is not in the same category
I mean, he's getting
as Putin.
$25 billion for the wall, which he said Mexico would pay for. I mean, it's a joke. The con is in.
We have a serious situation in this country. Coming back to DACA, there is another aspect of it where with the proposed bill, they don't want grandparents. They don't want aunts and uncles and cousins. We brought hundreds of thousands of Soviets here. And under refugee status.
Right.
Coming in the door, you get $35,000 per capita.
You're talking
Every
about
man, woman, and
Russian
child.
Jews.
As Russian Jews, the Cubans, any refugee brought here gets a
And who's
cash.
the Russian Jew in the White House?
The one from Russia or his family? Jared's family.
Garrett.
But
Okay.
they came longer.
Did you
They
know
came
that?
in 49.
Did you know that?
They came in 1949.
Okay.
But coming in under refugee status, it's I believe it's $35,000 per person. That's a heck of a start if you have a family of 4 or 5. But now they're saying you can't bring your grandmother, your uncle. You know, you can come and your child. So saving money there. But this is how they all got here. Auntie and grandma and everybody. Again, they're breaking up the family whether you're coming in or you're going out. They're breaking up the families. And there's no regard for anything other than Caucasians. I've looked at the records of immigration in this country going back to 1790. The area of the world which has the least number of immigrants is Africa coming into this country.
Really?
The least coming
Well, that's
from
by design.
Africa. Intentional.
That's by
Intentional. Your life now, is there any legal assistance that is available to you?
Yeah, I mean, there have been some community organizations that have come out and said we can help with your renewal fee. For example, every DACA recipient, you're due for renewal every 2 years. There is a fee of $495 that is paid to United States, pretty much the immigration. It's the immigration fee, $495 every 2 years. So when the law was first, or the program was first rescinded in September of last year, there were a lot of community organizations that came out and said, we will help with this renewal fee so that there aren't any barriers, especially financial barriers, that stop you from being eligible for a renewal. We at least want to keep the protection under you for another 2 years or whatever the time is, just because we're entering a time period where we're not sure what can happen, especially around immigration. So there were some community organizations that came out to help from a legality standpoint.
Is there a way you can buy yourself citizenship? I mean, sure, is there?
I don't know if it's necessarily citizenship. There is citizenship. One way is through marriage.
Is there a way, I know, in America, I'm sure there's a way that you can buy yourself your citizenship and your green card and social security number. There are scams out here.
Well, with Trump, yeah, you probably with Trump.
Don't get Trump,
It leads
man.
right back to him. That's what you say.
You know.
In terms of you came here, you said you were 7?
7 years old, that's right.
Okay. So prior to Barack Obama's executive order, had your parents sought, all right, their visa was over, they overstayed their visa, so technically they should have gone back home and then come back.
But you said if they went home and they could revise.
Well, if you left the country, so for example, if you have a visa and you leave before the visa expires, and you're obviously eligible to return.
Come back.
So when you come back, in some cases at that time, and this was between 1997 and 2000, we were on a 3-year visa.
Also, it changed.
Right, well, I don't know how it is now. I haven't left the country since '99.
Okay.
Since 9/11.
Prior to that. Well, and that's why I say that is the day that changed my life forever,
Yeah,
because that was the day that airport security increased. We started really putting an eye on who's coming into the country, who's leaving. So there was no way amnesty or immigration reform would be passed after September 11. And that's where I always say that is the single day that changed my life. Because I knew from that moment, just the way the media portrayed it. I mean, you look at attacks that happen anywhere across the world after that day, it's saying terrorist attacks, but you ask any person walking on the street, what do you think of when you think terrorist? You know, they're describing the Muslim extremist, right? So,
what's your biggest complaint?
My biggest complaint, that I don't have a home.
Okay.
Man without a country.
I don't have a home. I can't call Egypt my home.
Okay, right.
My father's resting place is in Egypt.
Okay.
I have never visited it.
Okay.
Because after my father passed away, we sent him back. We wanted to make sure he
I'm sure
rests
that
in his
bothers
home
you.
place. Right? I've never visited that place. Can't go see him on Father's Day. Can't see him on his birthday. Right? I don't get that opportunity. Even if I were to go back, I couldn't read the street signs to get there. I don't read and write Arabic. I just about speak Arabic.
Okay.
So my biggest complaint is that I don't have a home. I can't call America my home because it's not my home.
Well,
As much as I want to make it so.
Well, Obama tried to help.
Yeah.
I mean, he was my savior. I mean, I saw Obama as an American dream.
That's right.
I mean, that was truly the American dream.
That's
so,
right.
I mean, that should inspire anybody. I mean, his father was an immigrant.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why we continue to fight. You know, I think you asked the
Okay.
question, well, do you still have hope? And I say, yeah, I still have hope because I'm a man of God.
Amen.
I'm fortunate to have been introduced to my God and who he truly is and not who the media said it is.
Okay.
Right? I understand the difference. I know that the Quran, the Muslim identity, breeds love. It talks about love and
Amen.
nothing about hate.
Amen.
And that's we all believe in the same God,
Amen.
and obviously that's the case. So, of course, I can't live with fear knowing that I have faith.
That's important.
Can't live with fear knowing that I have faith. So
Perfect love casts out all fear.
I just
Amen.
want for fun, I want to bring in Malcolm talking about Egypt. You saw that, and I'll just play a few minutes of that, and we'll come back, give you a little idea of blacks being associated with Egypt. All right?
Amen.
What I was showing him was this picture here of these statues that were found over in Egypt, Upper Egypt, of black men. that were placed there or carved out of solid granite thousands of years ago. And if you notice, he didn't ever turn it toward the camera. He kept it down. Well, I started to turn it toward the camera, but I didn't. I was trying to be polite. And at that point. And but today in the Los Angeles Times on page 2, they have this same picture. You look in today's Los Angeles Sunday Times, and they have a story on page 2 about this temple over in Africa. They call it Egypt, but Egypt is in Africa. And the value of which is so tremendous, it points out how the United Nations is trying to float a loan of around $30 million to save this temple from being covered by the waters that will be brought up by this Aswan Dam that they're trying to build over there. And this thing is so shrewdly done that the average Negro will look at it and read it, and because it says Egypt, he never identifies it with him or him with it. It shows you how shrewd the white man is. But when all you have to do is look at the features of the thing, and you can see, brother, they got all the features that the white man says Negroes have. But because it is associated or connected with something of such value, archaeological and historic, anthropological value, the white man tries to steal it for himself and says, no, these are white people, these aren't black people. And look at this for yourself. Look closely at it, and then, and if you notice, you'll also read in there where the United States is on record as being against putting out the money necessary to save this archaeological wonder. They're against it. And it tells you in the paper that they're against it. They want to let it go on and go beneath the waves. There was a time when America would be for preserving something like that. Because in those days, the black man was so dead mentally, he could look right at it and wouldn't know he was looking at himself. He looked right at it and wouldn't know he was looking at himself. And today, when we see a black man, we know that's a black man. Whether they call him an Egyptian, a Re-Egyptian, or an Ab-Egyptian. Don't care what they call him. All you got, if he look like you, he's the same thing as you. And this man that they have here, brothers and sisters, it has nothing but the features of a pure black man. Also, they tell me that there's an exhibition going on in Los Angeles right now somewhere about King Tut. Where is that? Some kind of museum. Where is it? Exposition. Where is it? Oh, Exposition Park. I saw King Tut's mummy tomb when I was in Egypt. And I don't know if they have the same one here, but if you go and see it, you'll find out that this King Tut, whose mummy or sarcophagus, whatever they call it, they have, it's as black as this board. And the white man knows this. Every picture that they have of King Tut, he's not brown. No, he is black, brother, just like this. And the black people who lived in that day had mastered science to such extent, had mastered chemistry to such extent that they could create colors that the dye hasn't faded to this day. Now you know this. The white man got to paint his house every year. You got to paint yours, inside and out. And you haven't got a piece of cloth at home that won't fade if you put it in the sun. But yet these black people back there could make dye that has retained the color, same grade, quality, right down to the day from 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. They were master chemists. And this tomb, and I guess this what you call mummy,
Sarcophagus, gold sarcophagus.
Interesting. I always enjoy watching Malcolm talk about Egypt. Of course, I didn't put that together as you assume. Brother John, or I've forgotten the guy's name. I got this off YouTube. But the irony of it all is that how do you see Egypt? I mean, that's the homeland of civilization.
That's right.
All right? So we come from a grand place. And did you know any of this?
Not before you introduced me to it.
Okay.
I mean, having watched that clip prior and just understanding, I went to my aunt and asked as well, what were the origins of the pharaohs and people of those ancient times. And she said, yeah, they were of darker skin complexion, being that they were from the countryside for the most part. Right. So I didn't dive too deep into the context of it, but I guess I never grew up with that racist agenda or anything of it, because when I thought of blacks, I thought of Africa, and I said, well, Egypt is from Africa. I'm African as can be, so I didn't kind of operate out of that mindset. So.
Okay. So you didn't have that white supremacy concept. I mean, it's hard for a lot of black people to accept that we're from Egypt, or the ancient Egyptians were.
They brought in the biggest defenders, in my opinion, of white supremacy is us. When I say us, I'm talking about those of us, we buy right into it. And
Because of the brainwashing.
The conditioning, the brainwashing. It's not by nature you tend to your own. And here we are, a people, some of the most beautiful complexion people who are using bleaching creams.
Oh.
Whether it's in Africa,
That's the biggest seller over
whether
there.
it's Jamaica,
In Ghana especially.
whether it's Ghana,
Yeah.
and the baseball player
Sammy
down in
Sosa.
Dominican Republic.
Sammy Sosa.
Sammy
Yeah.
Sosa.
They said it was unbelievable. He was at a wedding. No, his wife's birthday party was last week, and he's an entirely different looking guy.
And I
But
love laying in the sun and getting darker.
but my point, the thing is that it is very critical for everyone to have knowledge of themselves.
Amen.
And it's not knowing my history, it's knowing one's history and how it blends in with the overall history of the world.
Right.
See, we are, and I'm talking about us, we are in a situation where we have to aggressively teach and go after getting our people to understand black history and to value it.
Okay.
We're aggressive. We have to be aggressive in it because we're in a culture where it's 24/7. You turn on the TV, and the opposite is there. Your child plays a video game, its opposite is there. And you see the controversy, so-called controversy in the schools where these principals and teachers, you have principals and teachers who don't want black history to be taught.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly.
And we're begging them to teach our children our history when it's really our responsibility to do that. But on this the image of terrorists being Muslim, that is an orchestration in itself. That is a modern.
Of course it was.
Okay.
Of course it was.
When the World Trade Center was hit, if it happened on a Monday or a Tuesday, I called
Tuesday.
Dick Gregory.
Tuesday.
I said, Dick, I want you to be on the show this Sunday. And
You had a radio show.
yeah, at that time.
Okay.
So he said, yeah. He said, but before I go on, I want you to read this section in the Bible, which I don't remember right now, but playing the tape I will. He said, I want you to read this section in the Bible
About the tower.
about the towers. You're familiar with that?
Your towers would fall, right? There is a
It's
prophecy.
in the Bible.
There's a prophecy.
It's in
Can't
the
remember.
Bible.
Okay.
He said, and I want you to get the movie The Long Kiss Goodnight. He said, watch that movie. Long Kiss Goodnight is co-starred with Samuel Jackson. It's an important movie for us to digest because in it forecasts how they would do a terrorist act and blame it on the Muslims. They say that in the film.
Okay.
It's right there in the film. When you watch it, you say, whoa.
This is pre 9/11.
Pre 9/11. The movie is the
Well, we all
long.
know that was an inside job. I mean, there's no doubt about
we
it.
know that, but they always telegraph something, but they put it in entertainment form.
Right.
The flu that's going around, they'll put it in entertainment form 4 or 5 years ago,
Okay.
and then we look at it, but we don't. We see it as a horror movie or something like that.
All right.
So I just interject that because that was the major film used to portray Muslims as terrorists.
Right.
And that's done for a reason.
Set the stage.
So Divide and conquer.
Set the stage.
Divide and conquer.
I remember when I was studying military science at CCNY, they said, we can turn a patriot into a traitor. They said, this is what we do. The military, this is what we were taught in the ROTC program back in the 60s. We can turn a patriot into a traitor in the eyes of the public. People are not astute enough to see. This is like the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. There's a lot of manipulation going on. Clinton, with the Oklahoma City bombing, Clinton said, oh, this is traitorous, whoever did, blah, blah, blah. Then he said, this is terror. That's the first time you heard the word terrorism was with Clinton. And then he said, whoever's responsible, they pointed out the militiamen who were patriots telling people what to look out for with the New World Order, and they turned them into the very traitors of the people.
Well, getting back to the military and
scenario.
how the American dream is brainwashing, well, I joined the Marine Corps, and I was a young mind. I was 18, and I mean, they brainwashed me. In 3 months, they put 30 pounds on me, and I came out and scared everybody on the block. You know, I went 155, 160 pounds, and came out 185. Man. And I mean, I remember marching across the parade field. I mean, it was the American dream. I was a Marine. This is 1960.
Right.
All right, when all of the Marine Corps was crackers. All right. I was one of 3 blacks and the only one from New York. So I didn't know about racism until I got in the Marine Corps. But all that went by the wayside once I got out of boot camp. The American dream was something, you know, I didn't get any further than, I came out with a stripe, but I didn't get any further because I wouldn't take any stuff at all. But that's just the saying, there is an American dream. I mean, you saw Obama become president, you know, and this is gonna, I mean, this too shall pass.
Right.
Donald Trump is on his way out, and you can watch him show the world what a democracy is really. We have to stand up and fight for our rights. I mean, and thank you for coming today, and it's been a pleasure, my brother.
Absolutely.
And we're going to go back to the huddle and show him some of these pieces.
Looking forward to it.
First, he was introduced to me by Ashley Sharpton, and thank you, Mostafa.
No, thank you guys for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you, Mustafa.
And again, the God in me loves the God in you. And that's sincerity. I mean, because God is love. And on Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day, and much love to everyone.
Don't
All
stab
right?
nobody.
And even Donald Trump, he's going to come around. All right? God will show him the way.
It may be too
Amen.
late for him.
God bless you. Power to the people. I need to run into 59 for the Bronx. Say a few words. You got 30 seconds.
How can we help?
Yeah, I mean, one way to help is certainly by calling your congressperson, senator, and just letting them know to support a Clean Dream Act, or a Dream Act for that matter. Continuing to just show support of the immigrant community. Let them know that you understand what they're going through. I think it's important for us to know who immigrants really are. Who immigrants really are. And I have this saying, and I always encourage people to speak your truth. Speak your truth, because they can portray things about you, but unless you live it, walk in it, and show them who you really are, they can say what they want, but they can't change how you live your life. So
Amen.
that is definitely certain something that I would encourage those who are undocumented of immigrant descent, and just helping to spread awareness about what's happening.
My congressman
And
is
peace
in
go
the
with
camp.
you.
He's
That's
pushing
great.
for